Now I'm going to go to page 102. And she's right, she's getting the trend of it. So this is the last appendix, so it must be connected to what? To the question. So at first I thought, that this shows that development of Satipatthana can bring about Samadhi. But then when I read Analayo, in Satipatthana, the direct path, he says that, he quoted this sutta, and he says that this sutta shows that that Samadhi is required in order for you to understand the body according to reality. So this sort of upset all my my strategy. So yeah, this is a very very valid interpretation. If you look at the way it's phrased, because all the words that are ardent, clearly knowing, unified with lucid mind, they are all either in present continuous, or they are in participles. Past participle. For example, composed is a past participle. With lucid mind, it's also a past participle. So it means that he has already done it, and then he's doing mindfulness of the body, right? So what he says is also quite true. That you need the mind to be unified, to be composed, to be still before you can actually practice Satipatthana in order to know the body as it is, or the feelings as it is, and so forth. Right? You can do Satipatthana without Samadhi, but you won't know the body as it is yet. This is preliminary. Okay, so he has a good argument there. So I had to do all my research all over again to look for some other evidence. I would like to make a little change here on page 102, the still mind, composed with still mind. I now prefer to translate it as focused rather than still. Ekaga, ekaga chitta. If you look on the left column, in the Pali, you will see ekodi bhuta, which is unified, vipassana chitta, with lucid mind, samahita, composed, which is the participle of samadhi, and ekaga chitta, with focused mind. Ekaga chitta is usually translated as with one-pointed mind. All right, and it's a bit strange. If you are not a Buddhist, you wouldn't know how many points the mind has, and how come he has only got 1 point. Okay. Anyway, another word that I want you to take note of is the vipassana chitta. All right, you look at the spelling; it's double P, double N. Okay. Then it's shaded on the left column. Vipassana chitta, samahita, ekaga chitta. The first word on the left. Can you see that? Now, a lot of people, when they write Pali, they are not very careful with their spellings. Just like just now, Brother Kakeng said, Suki Hontu. So if you spell vipassana wrongly, it has a different meaning. You know what I mean? Vipassana is spelled as, how do you spell vipassana? V-I-P-A-S-S-A-N-A, right? But here is double P and a single S and a double N. And it has a different meaning. The meaning is lucid. The meaning is clear, clarity of mind. And vipassana comes from another combination of vi and passana. Passana means to see. Vi is to clearly, distinctly. Right? So please be careful when you spell the Pali words. Some people even spell sadhu as S-A-D-D-H-U. Also, all sorts of funny spellings. Anyway, so looking at this, it shows that when one is doing the Satipatthana, Samadhi is somehow involved. Whether it is the beginning or later. But anyway, Samadhi is needed for you to see things as they had occurred. All right. Okay, now let's go on to find out whether Samadhi can really be achieved, rather than that Samadhi is required. Whether Samadhi can be achieved by doing the Satipatthanas. Okay, so what I did was I compared Kayanupassana, contemplation of the body, with Kaya Gadasati Sutta. which is in Majjhima Nikaya 119, mindfulness of the body discourse, because all the exercises in the Kayanupasana can be found in this sutta. Okay, so let's look at the Kayagata-sati Sutta, the proclamation, and how monks is mindfulness of the body developed and cultivated so that it is of great fruit and great benefit. And then he goes on to describe, okay, this is how you do it. All right, the structure of the Kayagata-sati comes with the proclamation, and then he goes straight to breathing. And then he goes to a refrain. The structure is almost similar to Satipatthana Sutta. It's just that the refrain is different. Okay, let's see what the difference is. The refrain is a Samatha refrain, not a Vipassana refrain. As he abides thus heedful, ardent and resolute, memories and thoughts based on the household life are abandoned. Internally, his mind stills, settles and becomes unified and composed. Doesn't this ring a bell? Yeah, this is the process of Samatha that we saw on page, in one of the appendices, on Vitakka Santana Sutta, page 96. If you look at page 96 in your workbook, you will see right at the top there, right within, his mind stills, settles, becomes unified and is composed. Alright, this is the whole process of how Samadhi develops. So by doing the breathing, he gets Samadhi. That is how a bhikkhu develops mindfulness of the body. Okay, so this refrain is repeated for every exercise. Alright, so it comes for every exercise, that which means that every exercise in the Kayanupasana leads to Samadhi. Right, there's no doubt about it. It's very clearly stated in Kayagata-sati Sutta. Now, what is interesting is that the jhanas are also included in Kayagata-sati Sutta. Alright? If you have read the suttas, you may be aware that the Buddha has given very detailed description of the experience of jhana. Not only the jhana factors, but also similes to express what it feels like to be in jhana. Right? So, in this Kayagata-sati Sutta, the first jhana is mentioned, and quoting the standard formula. Secluded from sensual desires, secluded from unwholesome mental states. He attains the first jhana, which is accompanied by vitakka and vichara, and born of seclusion. Okay, and then he gives the simile. So each jhana has its own simile, and I'm going to show you the similes that are involved. Now, in each of the four jhanas, the simile talks about pervading his body. Pervading his body with the rapture and pleasure born of seclusion. That's for the first jhana. The second jhana, pervading his whole body with the rapture and pleasure born of composure. And the third, with the pleasure divested of rapture. Divested means without rapture. And finally, he pervades his whole body with a pure, bright mind. Now we come back to this, because after every jhana, it goes back to the Samatha refrain. He says that as he abides thus heedful, ardent and resolute, memories and thoughts based on the household life are abandoned. Internally his mind still settles and becomes unified and composed. That is how a bhikkhu develops mindfulness of the body. Coming back to the structure. This also poses a question. The refrain is about getting Samadhi. But jhana is already Samadhi, right? So there seems to be something wrong somewhere. Maybe the copy and paste wasn't done too well. Not too well camouflaged, because you can see some inconsistency, right? How can, in the process of doing jhana, jhana is already Samadhi. And how can you say that you're doing that, you're getting Samadhi? So anyway, the important thing is that the similes are mentioned. The similes are, I'll read to you the first simile. Okay, so here, a monk quite withdrawn from sensuality, withdrawn from unskillful qualities, enters and remains in the first jhana, rapture and pleasure born from withdrawal, accompanied by direct thought and evaluation. He permeates and pervades, suffuses and fills this very body with the rapture and pleasure born from withdrawal. There is nothing of his entire body unpervaded by rapture and pleasure born from withdrawal. Just as if a skilled bathman or bathman's apprentice would pour bath powder into a brass basin and knead it together, sprinkling it again and again with water so that his ball of bath powder, saturated, moisture-laden, permeated within and without, would nevertheless not drip. Even so, the monk permeates this very body with the rapture and pleasure born of withdrawal. There is nothing of his entire body unpervaded by rapture and pleasure born from withdrawal. This is the first development of the five-facted noble right concentration. Okay, so the other similes, which I'm not going to read, but this to show you that why the jhanas are included in Kayagata Sati Sutta, because the body is mentioned and is pervading the body with the rapture and so forth. Now this contrasts with the Visuddhimagga's idea of jhana, because the Visuddhimagga says that when you are in jhana, all the five senses are cut off, right? But here you are actually pervading the body with the rapture that you gain from jhana. Now Visuddhimagga understands this to mean that one comes out of the jhana, one emerges from the jhana and makes use of the rapture that was gained to pervade the body, right? But when you look at the way it is phrased in the sutta, it doesn't seem so. The reason why Visuddhimagga explains it in this way is because he's trying to fit the sutta's explanation with his own understanding of how the jhana works. Anyway, so after each jhana, it goes back to the refrain. And finally, after we finish the fourth jhana and the simile, it goes on to say that anyone who has done all these Kayagata Sati exercises would have cultivated wholesome states and has gone beyond the reach of Mara and is ready for direct knowledge. Direct knowledge here means abhinya. And from there he talks about the different types of psychic powers that one can develop as a result of the Samadhi gained through the practice of Kayagata Sati. And then finally he concludes by giving the 10 benefits of practicing Kayagata Sati, and one of the benefits is the 4 jhanas. So it's a bit strange, isn't it? The jhana is written inside there, and then now it's one of the 4 benefits again. And of course, the final benefit is getting arahantship. Okay, so the purpose of bringing this up is to show you that there is no doubt that all the exercises in Kayanupasana can bring about Samadhi. Okay? Then how about Vedananupasana, Chittanupasana, and Dhammanupasana? I have to look for more evidence to show that it can actually bring about Samadhi. I mean, you all are talking from your own personal understanding and experience, but then we have to look into the suttas. What does the sutta say? Anyone can give their own opinion, right? Now let's compare that with the structure of the Satipatthana Sutta. The refrain in Satipatthana Sutta is a Vipassana refrain. Although the same exercises, different refrain. For the 14 exercises, you talk about contemplating internally, externally, both internally and externally, contemplating the nature of arising, of vanishing, of both arising and vanishing. It's mindful that there is or are a body, feelings, mind, dhammas, just for knowledge and repeated sati, is independent and does not cling to anything in the world. So this one is a very, very Vipassana sort of thing. Although both Kayagata Sati Sutta and the Satipatthana Sutta culminates in attainment of arahantship. This phrase here is independent and does not cling to anything in the world is an indication that one has attained arahantship. Okay, this one we are very familiar. This is you can see that the backbone of the Satipatthana Sutta is Vipassana, and the backbone of the Kaya-Gata-Sati Sutta is Samatha, Samadhi. Okay, now this Professor Kwan Chefu, in his book Mindfulness in Early Buddhism, New Approaches to Psychology and Textual Analysis of Pali, Chinese and Sanskrit Sources, further suggests that the four Satipatthanas and Kaya-Gata-Sati are just two different formulations of the same teaching with different emphasis. As I said earlier, his idea is that the word kaya here does not necessarily mean body. It means the self. The tendency to dissociate Satipatthana from Samatha is apparently a rather late development. So actually, Samatha is already intrinsic in Satipatthana. Yeah. Just like Kaya-Gata-Sati, is both, there's both Samatha and Vipassana. Right? But then because of sectarian biases, Theravada favors Vipassana. So the text could have been manipulated to suit their sectarian biases. Okay, now let's go on to the next one. Now I had to do some more research to find out more about Vedana Nupassana and Chitta Nupassana. And I came across this in the Digha Nikaya, Janavasabha Sutta. The story behind this sutta is kind of interesting. It's about King Bimbisara. King Bimbisara, as you know, was a very strong supporter and strong supporter of the Buddha and the Sangha, and he was the king of Magadha. Unfortunately, his son was too ambitious, and at the instigation of Devadatta, he didn't die a very pleasant death. Anyway, he was born in a good location. He was already a Sotapan during the Buddha's time, and after his death, he was born as in a realm of the four great kings, and he became a servant of King Vasavana, the Yaka king of the northern quarter. Now, King Vasavana is also a Sotapan, so it's okay for a Sotapan to be a servant of a Sotapan, right? So one day he was going on an errand, running an errand for King Vasavana, and then he saw the Buddha seated in meditation. Now, why was the Buddha seated in meditation at that time? There's also an interesting story, because it seems that the Buddha had been going around to different districts and then telling people, okay, such and such a layperson, Buddhist layperson died, and now he's reborn in such and such a place. He became a Sotapan, became a Sagadagami, and so forth. He's been going around giving such proclamations in various districts. But when he came to Magadha, he had not done the proclamation yet. So Asma Ananda, being very compassionate, beseeched the Buddha, please, why don't you tell us what has happened to our Buddhist, followers in Magadha who died? And where are they now? And their various attainments. So the Buddha remained silent, and silence means consent, right? So after that, he went back in the evening. He went to sit in isolation, in retreat, and started to direct his mind to find out where all these people had gone to. And as he was seated there, this Janawa Sabha that's the new name of King Bimbisara. He's called Janava Sabha Deva. He was flying along, and then he saw the Buddha sitting down there, and he could read the Buddha's mind. He knew that the Buddha was trying to find out what had happened to all the Magadhans, who died. And he knew, because one day he attended a meeting up in Tawatingsa, and the four great kings, they are also servants of Saka, of King Saka Devaraja. They would go and attend to him. So one day there was this big, bright light that appeared in Tawatingsa. And what does that mean? That heralds, the appearance of a Brahma. Brahmas come from a higher realm, so the devas of Tawatingsa would not be able to perceive a Brahma. Couldn't see light. Just like some of us, sometimes, we can see light balls at night moving. Sometimes you can capture with your digital camera, you know, all those orbs. Yeah, so we just see bright light, but you cannot make out any shape of it. So actually, this is a Brahma who comes down usually to give Dhamma talks in Tavatingsa, and he is also an Arya, an awakened being, and his name is Sanang Kumara. Nothing related to our Kumara here. Sanang Kumara Brahma. Why is he called Sanang Kumara? Because he likes to come down, and because they cannot see him, he would have to create an image for them to see, a gross physical form, so that they can see with their eyes. The devas can see, and he would normally create the form of a young boy. Right? So he was giving a talk, and he was extolling, the virtues of the Buddha and his wonderful teachings. And one of the things that he extolled was the Satipatthana. Right? And he talked about how good the Satipatthana is and so forth. And then this is how Janavasabha reported to the Buddha what this Brahma said. Okay? Having said this, Bhante, Brahma Sanankumara addressed the devas of Tavatingsa thus. It's about the virtues of Satipatthana. As a yogi thus dwells contemplating the body as body internally, he becomes perfectly composed and perfectly serene. Alright, this is Samma Samadhi Adi. And perfectly serene is Samma Vipassiyati. Vipassana. It's not Vipassana, this one is Vipassana. This is what we call lucid mind, clarity of mind, serenity of mind. Being thus perfectly composed and serene, he produces knowledge and vision externally in respect of another body. So this internal and external is a literal meaning, It's not just by inference. Because maybe he's a Brahma, he can do it. Right? It's psychic power. He becomes composed and perfectly serene by contemplating the body as body internally first. And then once he has attained this samadhi, then only he produces knowledge and vision externally in respect of another body. Right, this applies to all the Satipatthanas. You also note here that the phrase here is knowledge and vision rather than knowledge and repeated sati. There's also a bit different. So this also corresponds with Ajahn Sujato's refrain. Then he says the same thing for feelings, mind, dhammas. First, you contemplate the feelings as feelings, mind as mind, dhammas and dhammas internally, and then when you become perfectly composed and perfectly serene, then only do you produce knowledge and vision externally in respect of other dhammas, other people's minds and other people's feelings. Alright, so this is found in Janavasabha Sutta, Digha Nikaya 18, where you can this conclusively shows that Satipatthana leads to Samadhi. Okay, let me go on to more evidence from the suttas to show that actually Satipatthana leads to Samadhi. Give you a background story. Actually, I didn't complete my story. What happened to all the Magadhans who died, and where were they? So it seems that at that time when this Janavasabha attended this meeting up in Tavatingsa, he heard Sakadeva Raja exclaiming very joyously, that now, he's so happy to see so many devas up there. And then he says, now that there are so many devas, they're all Buddhists, Buddha's disciples, they come out here and they really make our realm so splendid. And now the Asuras will fear us because we got more people, more members. And so it seems there are about 2.4 million Magadhas, who went up to Tavatingsa and to the four great kings' realm. Now all of them are Buddhists. Okay, now coming back to this story about Chula Vedala Sutta. Chula Vedala Sutta is an interesting story. Also, as I said earlier, it's a Q&A between the Bhikkhuni Dhammadinna and the Upasaka Visakha. And so this Upasaka Visakha was asking this Bhikkhuni Dhammadinna 4 questions about Samadhi. what is the nimitta of samadhi? Now, nimitta here does not mean, a visual sign like I said the other day. In the suttas, usually it means the cause, right? The cause and condition. What is the cause and condition for samadhi? And he says the 4 Satipatthanas are the basis or the cause for samadhi. All right? And also another thing that I want to bring your attention is ekagata. Ekagata is usually translated as one-pointedness. Right? Now, actually, there's no such word in English. And if you're not a Buddhist, you don't know what it means. But many Buddhists have now caught on with this idea that one-pointedness means you must point your concentration and mindfulness to just one point. And that's where they get a lot of headache. You see, it's so important to get the right translation, the right concept. If you give a wrong translation, it's so misleading, you lead people off the track. Right? So, we have done some research together with Asma Kumara, and he tells me that in Chinese, the translation of ekagata is yi jing, yi jing xing, yi jing xing, and jing means place, So, and did I talk about ekagata already? Not yet, huh? Okay, maybe it's coming somewhere. Okay, it's coming in the next slide. All right, we are going to talk about ekagata, why I translate it as one placeness, although Asma Kumara prefers stillness, okay, as a more idiomatic translation. All right, now before we go on to the next slide, let's look at the other answers to the question. The 4 right kinds of strivings are the equipment of samadhi. All right, 4 right kinds of strivings is the right effort. The 2 pairs. The first pair of abandoning unwholesome mental states, and the second pair of arousing and developing wholesome mental states. The first one is to prevent unwholesome mental states from arising, and once unwholesome mental states have arisen, to abandon, putting the effort to abandon them. All right. And the last answer is quite obvious. Is the repetition of all these things that is the development of samadhi. Now let's look at the translation of ekagata. The word analysis of ekagata shows that it is formed of 3 words: eka, aga, and ta. Okay, eka means one, and ta is a suffix that makes it into an abstract noun, right? It's ness. And what does aga mean? And aga has got quite a number of meanings. It means tip, point, topmost, foremost, beginning, best. That's one set of meaning. And then the other set is a place. For example, foremost is agacita, foremost mind. Okay, it can also mean beginning, like in Aganya. Aganya Sutta, it talks about the beginnings of the world. Right? You can say Agasavaka, the foremost disciples of the Buddha. They are called Agasavaka. Now, where is it used as a place? It's less often used, but still there is a usage found in Pali. For example, the place where you do dana is called a danaga. Danaga. Dana-aga. Danaga is a place where you do dana. Alright? Dana hall. And then there's another place called bhattaga. Bhatta is meal. A place for taking meals. A dining hall is called a bhattaga. Alright? So these 2 usage of the word aga is either something at the top, at the point, at the tip of a hill and things like that, the peak of a hill and so forth, or it refers to a place. Now, the translation of the word ekagata, the popular translation, as we have said, is based on the word point, and that's why they translate it as one-pointedness, whatever that means. But I prefer to translate it as one-placeness, based on the second meaning of aga. Right? One-placeness, to me, it means a focus state. Right? And a focus state, what does focus mean? People also can be misled to think that focus means, focusing at one point. That's why Asma Kumara objected to this. He didn't quite like this translation because of the possible connotations, undesirable connotations. But I looked up the dictionary, and let's look at the word focus. There are three meanings there, but the first two are relevant to us. The first meaning is to give attention, effort, etc. to one particular subject, situation, or person rather than another. Okay. Now this one is wider than just a point, right? It's a situation, now not just a particular point. And secondly, also to adapt or be adjusted so that things can be seen clearly. To adjust something so that you can see things clearly. And this is the function of Samadhi, isn't it? You have Samadhi so that you can see things clearly. Samatha will aid you in your Vipassana. And that is the verb. But when I say a focused state, I'm using it as an adjective, right? Not as a verb. So what does it mean as an adjective? An adjective means with your attention directed to what you want to do, with very clear aims. All right? With your attention directed to what you want to do, could also mean focusing on a point. But it could also mean more than that. Focusing on what you want to do could be you want to focus on doing open awareness. And that's what you want to do, being aware of things as they come and go. Yeah, but Asam Kumara is still not very convinced of this. So maybe I would like to invite him to give you his point of view.
Okay, before I get to that one, for Sing I Ching Sing, I didn't say it was placed there. The Jing here is the realm, or it is normally you would translate as a sphere or the base. It's the same as the Pali word ayatana. Right. So it's Chitta Ekagata is Sing I Ching Sing. So Ekagata is Yi Ching Sing. Yi is one, and Ching the base or sphere, and the Sing is the ness. But that's just a hypothesis which I'm basing on the Chinese translation. But back to the just the Pali alone, Aga as in as a contraction of another Pali word, Agara, is A, G, and A, long A, then R-A. As in Danaga is also, if I remember correctly, it is also found as Danagara. So it's just a different form of the same word. So this one-placeness, my understanding as I look at this word, one place, means you're in one place and therefore it is still and not moving about, as opposed to the mind that is all over the place. I think you're familiar with that. So, and there's this ekaga, this word also found in suttas where it talks about as you're walking, there's ekaga. As you're sitting also, there's ekaga, the chitta is in ekaga. The standing, you're lying down also can be ekaga. So obviously it's not about focusing on any certain thing. But I was considering Bante's translation as well, focus as in like you're focused, as in you're walking and you're focused, you're not all over the place. So that makes sense too. It's just a bit concerned about how people might still relate that to the one-pointed kind of thing because of conditioning, past conditioning. So important thing here is that if you want to use focus state, you have to be clear about what it means. Even actually the word concentrated is also okay. You can still use that word because concentration also has the idea of, it comes from the word con and center, meaning to say it has a what they call Latin origin. Center, you see the word center there, right? Concenter is like it's put together, put into a common center. And here it's not talking about the attention, it's talking about the mind. When you say a concentrated, let me see, that's the word. When you talk about a concentrated mind, usually what people think is a concentrated attention, right? The word mind is also very, very varied in meaning in English. And when you talk about a concentrated mind, people, and especially when it comes to meditation, people think about it as a concentration. So people think of it as the attention. So the Pali itself does not speak of it in that way. It's saying that the mind itself is concentrated. It's not. So if you take the meaning as it came from the Visuddhimagga, where the word samadhi is defined as to place your attention on one object, ekaramane, right? On one object, which this kind of definition is not found in the suttas. If you take that as the meaning, then this English word's concentration would naturally give you that idea of being where the focus, where the emphasis is on the object of attention. Whereas the word samadhi, samahita, the samadhiyati, all these things are talking about, referring to the mind itself, the citta. So the citta that is not all over the place, it is composed, it is collected, it is, and usually you find this word connected with, it is steadied, it is unified, it is, what's the other word? It's settled. So these are all words that has to do with the mental state. It is not about the placing of attention. So whether or not you use focus or whatever you need to understand it correctly, then you're fine. That's fine.
Okay,
Sobane.
thank you. Okay, let's go on to see the definition of samadhi in the suttas. We go back to what just now the Bhikkhuni Dhammadina answered. The Pali here is Ya chittassa ekaggata ayam samadhi. In the popular translation would be the mind's one-pointedness. This is concentration. But I would prefer to translate it as the mind's focus state. This is composure. And let's look at the word composure and how it stands with our Pali analysis of samadhi. Again, this is from my Oxford Advanced Learner's Dictionary, 7th edition. Composure is a noun, and it has the meaning of the state of being calm and in control of your feelings or behavior. And what does samadhi mean? Samadhi is a noun derived from sam, which means together thoroughly, and a, which means to bring, and da, to put or place, which has the verb in passive voice samadhiyati, to be thoroughly brought together and put or placed. Maybe composure is not such a good word to translate samadhi after all, because it seems to be a result of samadhi rather than samadhi itself. Right or not? Yeah, when your mind is thoroughly brought together and placed, then it becomes composed. So I don't know, we are still searching. Don't know what is the right word to use for samadhi. Maybe concentration is a good word, but you need to qualify it. Like Asma Kumara just said, if you look at it from the Latin analysis, con and center. Con is bringing together, right? Center is in the center, right? So it might actually be a good word, but we need to do it with observations, explanations.
Word composure has a Latin origin, which if you break it out, it is quite similar to the origin of the word samadhi when broken down. Composure comes with the com, that's one part, and the posure originally is ponere. I don't know how to pronounce that correctly, so it's P-O-N-E-R-E, the origin Pali.
Latin.
Latin, sorry. And it is about, when you talk about composition, right? A composition of things, meaning things that are put together, right? Correct? So it has a similar idea, it has a similar origin, and yet at the same time, when it is made into a noun form, Samadhi, it also carries that idea, as I understand it, because I'm basing it on Seattle Tejaniya's translation of Samadhi to stability of mind. And the word composure also carries that idea. So for me, in my mind, it's the perfect translation. Of course, the other one, which is also a very good translation, is collectedness. Collectedness, if you look at brought together, put or place, when you collect, they're putting things together, right? So you're collecting them, putting them together, or as you talk about composure, you're also putting things together. And so this is a composition of things. So the mind that is collected or put together, composed, for me carries the same meaning, and therefore I quite like the word composure. Collectedness is actually a nicer word for me, but if you want to take the imperative meaning of samadha, cittang samadha, meaning to say
collect your mind.
Collect your mind. So it sounds funny, where's my mind? Go and collect it. So compose your mind, that doesn't have a problem, right? So therefore, to be consistent in translation, to use the word compose and composure and composed, be composed, that would sort of be consistent, and it'd be easier to get a hang of when you read the translation. That's for me.
Okay, thank you for sharing. Okay, let's move on. And now let's look at how this word samadhi, in whichever way you want to translate, can fit into the different types of samadhi that can be found in the sutta. And there are many different types of samadhi. I'm still in the process of making a research. But just like to point out one particular sutta. It's called the Samadhi Bhavana Sutta.